أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم فإن لم تأتوني به فلا كيل لكم عندي ولا تقربون قالوا سنراود عنه أباه وإنا لفاعلون وقال لفتيانه اجعلوا بضاعتهم في رحالهم لعلهم يعرفونها إذا انقلبوا إلى أهلهم لعلهم يرجعون فلما رجعوا إلى أبيهم قالوا يا أبانا منع منا الكيل فأرسل معنا أخانا نكتل وإنا له لحافظون قال هل آمنكم عليه إلا كما أمنتكم على أخيه من قبل فالله خير حافظا وهو أرحم الراحمين.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. So alhamdulillah, we've reached actually the final scene of Surah Yusuf. Now, if we look at the various scenes of Surah Yusuf alayhi salam, we will realize that within the story itself, since the beginning till now, every other scene was only within a few ayats. Right? For example, the ayah of the dream was only in one ayah. And then when he was speaking to his father, was only in a few ayats, right? And then to even in prison, what happened from the time when he went to prison, and in a dream while he heard the dream from his prison mates, was only in a few ayats, right? Now the last and final scene is pretty much where we are now. However, is the majority of the surah. If you notice, the entire story of Yusuf alayhi salam starts from ayah number 3. It ends on ayah number 101. And we've only pretty much reached halfway of the surah. So majority of the part of the surah is this last portion here, right? If we start to learn the Quran a little bit more, we start to find a pattern in which Allah uses when he relays His message, right? One of the things I learned in Surah Yusuf is that Allah mentions things that are only significant to the story in very small parts. For example, when the brothers, put Yusuf into the well, it was only a part of the ayah. He didn't explain it in great detail. So he mentions things only integral to the message that he wants to relay, right? He won't waste time or he won't waste effort to relaying a message if it doesn't really benefit us. Now, in the case of Yusuf alayhi salam, we'll see that at the end of the story, that the majority of the bulk of the story, actually the bulk of the ayats are in this part of the story. if that makes sense, right? So we've reached ayah number, what is it? 58, right? 58 is when, Yusuf alayhi salam became the minister of interior affairs, right? Or the person who looks over the stockpile in Egypt. We've established last week that Yusuf alayhi salam, he had a plan. Right when he saw his brothers, we mentioned Yusuf alayhi salam did not reveal himself immediately. Because as we said, when the Prophet Mohamad says, a true believer, a believer doesn't get bit by the hole twice. Right? Meaning that, a hole in which it houses a snake, for example, right? If you reach in there and you get bitten once, you'll be sure not to put your hand in there again, right? It's a saying which tells us that a believer, when something happens to them from another person, right, he learns from that mistake. And in the case of Yusuf alayhi salam, he knows what happened between him and he didn't forget. He forgave, which we'll get to, but he never forgot, right? And he was cautious when he saw his brothers again. Now imagine the scene. Yusuf alayhi salam spent his entire life really not knowing anybody, right? Imagine how much he missed his home, his family, his father, and his brother, Benjamin in this case, right? How much he missed them. And then once we get further on, we will see how much he really did miss him. So it was like kind of like for him it seemed to be very difficult for him to hold back because when he reunited with his younger brother, he embraced him. It showed that he missed, and in any case, anyone who is distant from a family or friends, like I myself, when I was in Saudi Arabia, I didn't have anybody. I had a few brothers, but my mom, my parents, the food even, right? Even the streets that I used to drive on, I missed, right? The scenery in Seattle compared to Saudi Arabia is very different. Just that alone, you feel nostalgic when you think about it, when you contemplate over things. Yusuf alayhi salam, he was in prison and he had a lot of time to contemplate over things. I would assume that shaitan will come to him during prison because he had free time, right? So Yusuf alayhi salam, we reached to the point where he sees his brothers and he wants to come up with a plan. Now, I mentioned while I was reading the story of Yusuf, and this is purely my opinion, that Yusuf alayhi salam, he had to come up with a plan to get his brothers to do something for him without giving up his identity, right? He wanted to get Benjamin to him, to Egypt, without having his brothers know that he's doing that, right? So we explained his whole scenario where the brothers came to him to meet with him in the same area, same room, for example, right? And as we broke down last week, that there was a sequence of the scholars of the Tafseer mentioned that there was questioning involved. Yusuf alayhi salam gave them kind of like a process to have them apply to get the trade, if that makes sense, right? And I use the example of those who are familiar with food stamps or EBT, right? Governmental services. If you go to like DSHS and apply for government funding, they will make sure that they will look into your bank accounts, your assets. They will make sure that you go through a vigorous type of application, and they will do some background checks to make sure that you're actually telling the truth, right? In any type of like government funds or help, all over the world, usually this happens, and we can only imagine the intelligence of Yusuf alayhi salam and how he proved to us how intelligent he was. I don't want to say I have no doubt, but I'm pretty sure that Yusuf alayhi salam would have done the same, right? Even more so, where the brothers of Yusuf were how many? Were 10. So they're asking for a lot. In any case, if you're asking for a lot from the government, be sure that they're going to put you into a process of making sure that you're asking, you're legitimate, right? What else did we talk about? We mentioned how Yusuf alayhi salam, after revealing that the brothers had another brother that they didn't bring with them, Yusuf alayhi salam requested them to bring the brother. Otherwise, he's talking to the brothers here, you all won't have this service anymore. In fact, you won't even come close to me. You have to bring that brother again to get his portion of the trade. You have to show me some proof. In any case, a husband, for example, can go to the Department of Services and say, I have a wife, 3 kids, and I want to apply for government services. They would ask for proof. In the olden days, you don't have ID cards. You can't show proof. The person has to be there with you, right? They would have to see how old they were, if they were old enough to have a wife, for example, and possibly kids, right? So the whole process, the entire process of Yusuf alayhi salam, not only shows and proves his intelligence, but it goes back to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says through Yaqub. When Yaqub says, وَيُعَلِّمُهُ تَأْوِيلَ الْأَحَادِيثِ. And again, ta'weel al-ahadith can mean 3 things. Interpretation of dreams, the understanding of languages or speeches, different types of speeches, or the understanding of different events. And I've explained what that means by understanding what events mean, right? Like, for example, a judge, for example, he would judge between 2 parties. For a really good judge who can hear both stories and both sides, if a judge was really good at their job, they would be able to find out who is lying and who's telling the truth, right? That is, in a sense or in a way, being able to understand events. Does that make sense? In my opinion, Wallahu ta'ala alam, and Allah knows best, but based off of what I've researched, I feel like Yusuf alayhi salam, he is able to convince his brothers to be able to bring Binyamin to him without them even knowing. Does that make sense? Yeah. He's able to do that because of ta'weel al-ahadith, right? And I ask Allah to forgive me if that's incorrect, but every time I read the story over and over again, I keep going back to that same kind of sense. A lot of scholars mention there's a lot of types of explanations when it comes to this matter. So moving forward, the brothers, they saw the hospitality of Yusuf alayhi salam. they saw that his price was better than any other price that they can even get. The deal was so good that just with the deal itself, they can't miss out. We mentioned that the brothers possibly stayed for a few nights. Yusuf alayhi salam housed them because he says, Ana khayrun munzilin. Manzala or manzil comes from the word like housing, right? Or a place of stay. So that suggests that Yusuf alayhi salam actually kept them so they can replenish to get ready for a journey back home, right? And Yusuf alayhi salam not only did that, but he prepared their things for them, right? So the generosity, the hospitality, when you gain somebody's trust, they will surely go back to you when it comes to business, right? Now, the brothers are convinced. And what did they say? They said that we will definitely go back to our dad. And what the word that they mentioned was rawada. The same exact words, the same exact wordage that the wife of the Aziz used when she said, I will seduce Yusuf. In the case of the brothers, they said the same thing. They said, we will surely, all 10 of us, will surely, obviously not seduce, but another translation of seducing is enticing our father and convincing him to let Binyamin come with us again. This is what they said. وَإِنَّا لَفَاعِلُونَ. We will definitely do it. Like, no doubt about it. This is on our top of our priority list. Right? Okay, so ayah number 63. This is where we left off last week. فَلَمَّا رَجَعُوا إِلَىٰ أَبِيهِمْ قَالُوا يَا أَبَانَا مُنِعَ مِنَّا الْكَيْلِ. They went back to their father. They took the journey back. And the journey, I don't know how good my calculations are with Google Maps, but I looked at Google Maps, and there's no direct entrance to Philistine, because now you had to take a different direction to there. So it goes south. Well, it goes southeast, and then it goes northeast. The trip now, if you look at Egypt, this Cairo, for example, going to a place where sort of where Canaan was, like the northern part of Palestine, you'll see that it'll take about a week's journey, right? And that's nonstop. That's nonstop. So approximately 5 days nonstop journey from Egypt to Canaan or Philistine, right? So let's just say they stopped nights. They spent time, sleeping at nighttime, and then continued. Just times that by 2, approximately 2 weeks journey. Approximately. Now I don't know how good that calculation is, but it gives us an idea of how long that trip took. And even so, they had their things with them, so it was dragging them even further, if that makes sense, right? So it slowed them down. And they were poor as well. So we don't even know if they had donkeys or to drag their things along, right? We don't know. So their journey back home, from the last ayah to this ayah, it skips all that. It completely just skips it, right? And we mentioned that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He doesn't waste His time. The things that He mentions are integral to the story, or to the message that He wants to deliver to us. So anything that's left out, we trust that Allah leaves it out for a reason. Okay? فَلَمَّا رَجَعُوا, when they returned to their father, إِلَىٰ أَبِيهِمْ قَالُوا, they said, يَا أَبَانَا مُنِعَ مِنَّ الْكَيْلِ. Oh Father, they've denied us a measure or a trade, kail, right? فَأَرْسِلْ مَعَنَا أَخَانَا نَكْتَلْ وَإِنَّا لَهُ لَحَافِظُونَ. So send our brother Binyamin with us so that we can complete or fulfill the missing measure, the missing, I don't know what other word to use, but what they're missing from the last trade that they did, right? From that measure, we need to bring our brother to go complete that measure, right? Naktal means to gather something or collect something in a bunch so that it's completed, right? Meaning, now I'm not sure how correct I am in this opinion, but it seems to be that they've got their trade with them. They've traded their merchandise with the food that they wanted from the king. However, there was one left over, a measurement that was left over that belonged to Binyamin. And they wanted to go back so they can get that measurement to complete the group, right? وَإِنَّ لَهُ لَحَافِظُونَ. This is another kind of repetition in the story. We heard this previously. وَإِنَّ لَهُ لَحَافِظُونَ. The same exact word. When they said, with who? We will definitely watch over him. We will protect him. When did they say that? When they went to ask their father to take Yusuf to go play with him. Exact same wording, right? Now, a lot of the scholars, they mentioned about how this one word can trigger Yaqub alayhi salam, right? It's like a memory, because when you have something that happens to you, and it's like an event that was so tragic, it sticks with you. You can remember the memories very vividly, and there are things like smells or like touch, like scents that will remind you of those moments. So you can imagine when the same people, the same wordage that is mentioned to the father, you can only imagine how he felt, right? Now, with that said, I really want to focus on Yaqub alayhi salam and his reply to his sons. His reply, just as we mentioned before, when we said that Yaqub alayhi salam, when he replied to his sons after they came back crying with the bloody shirt, do you remember how he replied to his sons? I want to focus one more time on the reply of Yaqub alayhi salam towards his sons, right? Now, before I go there, there's a few points that I want to mention on ayah number 63. This ayah, it shows that the brothers had nothing else on their minds. In fact, the following ayah, ayah number 64, they went to unpack their things after they talked to their father. So right when they got back to their father, they went straight to him. Because their priority was what? Their priority was to entice their father, to convince him to bring the Binyamin with them the next time. That was the only thing on their minds. Every single one of them, all 10. They didn't even go home. They didn't see their family yet. They probably didn't even enter their houses yet. They probably went straight to their father's house with all their things. And they went to their father because that was the only thing on their mind. Right? Now I want to remind you guys that I hate to paint a bad picture of the brothers of Yusuf. But the tafsir, when we read the tafsir, there are so many kind of like acknowledgements of their wrongdoing. Right? So for us, if we only hear bad things about a certain type of people, that's the only thing that's created in our minds. Obviously, they could have done good as well, but it's not recognized. It's not mentioned to us, if that makes sense. However, it was mentioned when they said that we will try to get rid of Yusuf, and then we will repent to Allah, will return to Allah. So it shows that they had iman. They believed in Allah, right? They were Muslims. So I don't want to take that away from them, if that makes sense, right? So continuing on, the brothers were so... The only thing they had in their mind was to convince their father. The next ayah number 64, shows that after that they started to unpack their things, and what did they find? They found the merchandise that they brought with them to Egypt so they can sell off in trades for the food, right? Ayah number 64. قال هل آمنكم عليه إلا عفوا. Sorry, ayah number 65, is it? Yes, ayah number 65 was when they unpacked their things. My mistake. Ayah number 64 is the response of the father. His word, right? Now, whenever Allah gives the opportunity for a prophet's words to be mentioned in the Quran, take notice of it. Pay close attention to the words of the prophets, of our prophets, and what they said, because Allah puts it there for a reason. Now Yaqub alayhi salam, after hearing the word وَإِنَّا لَهُ لَحَافِظُونَ, indeed we will protect him on the journey to Egypt, right? He says, قَالَ هَلْ آمَنُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ إِلَّا كَمَا آمِنْتُكُمْ عَلَى أَخِيهِ مِنْ قَبْلِ. Right? He says, should I trust you? Kum is you all, right? If you say amanuka is one person, kum is you all, three or more. So he says, hal amanukum alayhi, should I trust you with Binyamin, with him? Illa kama amintukum ala akhihi, just like how I trusted you before with his brother, meaning Binyamin's brother. Min qabl, before that. Remember, like a long time ago. So Yaqub alayhi salam, he didn't forget. Right? I want to stop here because it's amazing to me that Yaqub alayhi salam, he was very careful with his words. Very short, but very concise. Yaqub alayhi, did I say Yusuf? I meant Yaqub. Yaqub, he's saying, now, there's one thing about trying to understand the tonage of his voice. You could just imagine, like, he's, maybe he, like, if it's anybody else, they would be upset. They'd be like, you have the audacity to come back to me after what you did, and you're gonna ask to bring my youngest son with you guys after what you guys did to me? Right? You have the audacity to come ask me a second time after what you guys did. Right? But listen to what he says. Even if I say it with a strong voice, should I trust you? Just like how I trusted you before with his brother? Should I trust you with him or with Binyamin? Just like how I trusted you before with his brother? There's one thing to note here. One very fine note here. Yaqub alayhi salam, he was so thoughtful of his other sons, the 10 sons. He was so thoughtful of their feeling that he didn't even say the name Yusuf alayhi salam. He didn't say the name Yusuf. He said his brother. He was very sympathetic, and he was very mindful of the feelings of the brothers, of his sons. At the end of the day, every single one of them is his sons. He didn't even use the name of Yusuf to make sure that he doesn't trigger any memories that they did. Does that make sense? Right? Yaqub alayhi salam, he has every right to be upset. He has every right to say, even to say nothing, right? If you say nothing to your sons, it hurts them. Because all they see is your face being upset, and they know they hurt you. And if you're silent, it's like a staggering feeling in your heart. If your father doesn't talk to you or say, son, listen, you hurt me the first time, and you're gonna hurt me again, that's better than saying nothing to your son. Because shaitan comes and they whisper worse things to your sons. Does that make sense? However, not only was he very mindful of his words to his sons, he continued to say, Wallahu khayrul hafidha wa arhamur rahimin. He's reminding them of Allah. He's taking this opportunity not to be angry, not to blame them, but to remind them of Allah. Profound. Wallahi. The first kind of discussion that we had together in the beginning of this class, I asked you all a question. And I said, is it okay, Shurahbil and Mohamad? I'm going to put your father on the spot right now, okay? Is it okay for your dad to love one of you guys more than the other guy?
Yes.
Is okay?
Yes.
And we explained that in a way where we use Yaqub as an example. It's okay because a person has no control over their heart. You have no control over your heart. If I tell you now, I will give you my phone and my laptop. If you like, I don't know what I said. I was gonna say, if you like Donald Trump, I will give you $100 right now. Will that change will that change your opinion? What if I said, what's your favorite car? Tesla?
I don't have one.
Oh, you don't have one? Let's just say I have a Bugatti. You know what a Bugatti is? What if I said the rarest Bugatti, you know the Bugattis that they have in Dubai, is coated in gold, right? If I said I'll give that to you, if you say I don't like Allah anymore, can I change your heart? Astaghfirullah. I can't, right? Nobody has control over your heart. Even yourself. Ourselves, we don't have any control over our own heart. Correct?
Yeah.
So the person who has control, when we say, Ya muqallib al-qulub, thabbit qalbi ala dinika. Oh, changer of the hearts. When you say changer of the hearts, he controls your heart. He's the one that can change it. Oh, changer of the hearts, keep my heart firm on your deen, firm on your religion. Right? So in this case, Yaqub alayhi salam, he had no control over his heart. And when all of his sons knew that he was closer, or he had more love for Yusuf alayhi salam, that's just how the heart is. However, I've mentioned one more thing. I said that I will try to prove to you that Yaqub alayhi salam treated every single one of his sons fairly. There's a difference between equally and fairly, right? If you say equally, let's just say Mohamad is like a 2-year-old, and then Shurahbil is like he's like a teenager, right? If I give them both $10, they'll be equal, right? But it's not fair because he's still in diapers and he needs to pay for gas, right? When it comes to fairness, that's when it becomes haram and halal. When you start treating your children unfairly, that's when it becomes haram. But when you love somebody, you have no control over that. Yaqub alayhi salam, as we mentioned, he had every right to be upset. But yet, he used this moment as an opportunity to remind his sons about Allah. Why? Because they are sinning. They did something wrong. Yaqub alayhi salam wanted them to recognize Allah when it comes to that. Isn't that, wallahi, it stumps me. I can't imagine any human being like Yaqub alayhi salam. I can't. I've met people in Saudi Arabia. I've met people who invited me personally. I was just in the hospital. I was waiting in the hospital, and I was trying to read the newspaper. I came across a word. That word in Arabic, and I hope you guys remember this. That word in Arabic is kahraba'i. Kahraba'i. What does that mean? It means electricity. That's what it means. Electrician, yeah, or kahraba, right? Some guy was waiting with me in the waiting room. I was like, man, I really want to know this word. I don't want to wait. I want to know it right now. So I asked him, yeah, Sheikh, ma ma'na kahraba? He says, kahraba, you don't know what kahraba? And he doesn't know English, so he's trying to explain to me. So that whole time I was listening to him attentively because I really wanted to know this word. He saw my eager to learn Arabic, and guess what he did? He says, you know what? I can't explain it to you right now, but I want to invite you and your whole entire family to my house, and I want to cook a whole lamb for you. I want to prepare a whole lamb for you, just for you and your family. And I will explain to you the word when I meet you again. Right? And I was like, it shocked me. Because I'm American. I'm fresh, I'm a new student, and I'm coming from America. This has never happened to me before. Nobody has ever offered me anything like this before. And I was surprised. I was like, what kind of people are these guys? I'm just Mohamad. I don't need a whole lamb. Just give me a shank maybe, or just a little bit. I don't need it. But he says, no, you come. And what else he asked me? He said, do you have a car? If not, I will send a taxi to you. And you know where he lived? He lived 2 hours away from where I lived. He says, don't worry, I will pay for everything. Just come visit. I want you to come visit. Right? And I was just blown away, Now, I don't know why I said that story, but the person that I met, I thought it never existed. I never thought that people were like that. It showed me a whole different world. When I was reading the Surah of Yusuf alayhi salam, and I started to analyze the words of Yaqub, I was shocked. The word shock is not even enough to explain how I felt. I was amazed by who Yaqub was. I can't even explain. The only way I can explain to you who he was is through his wording. That's the only way I can explain to you who he was. So, back to the ayah. He says, Wallahu khairul hafidha. Why did he say this? The ayah previously, we says, Inna lahu lahafidhun. Indeed, he said the same word. Hafidh, right? Indeed, we will protect him. Yaqub alayhi salam, he used the same word, but he associated with who? He associated Hafidh with Allah. He says, you guys can protect him. But the one who protects him, the one who protects you, and the one who protects Yusuf, even him. So I want to explain the word hafiz, right? Would you agree that the love and the care of a mother and a father to their children is unmatched? Nobody can match the love and care of a mother and a father, right? Nobody can match that. Their love and care for their child is the greatest emotion in this world today. Nobody can match that. I don't care who you are, right? The mother will sacrifice herself for her child. Nobody can do that. Except for a mu'min who loves the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's probably the only exception, right? Okay. Yaqub alayhi salam, he is saying here that Allah is the greatest protector. Yaqub alayhi salam, had he had Yusuf alayhi salam with him, wouldn't he protect him? Yaqub would definitely protect Yusuf alayhi salam, correct? But he wasn't able to. He was not able to. No matter how much of love and care he had for his son, he wasn't able to do that. However, Allah, whether you're sleeping, whether you are alone in a well, whether you're in prison, no matter where you are, Allah is khayrul hafidha. He is the one that's ever protecting. That is who Allah is. And that is what Yaqub alayhi salam wanted to teach his sons. And then he says something even more profound. وَهُوَ أَرْحَمُ الرَّاحِمِينَ وَهُوَ أَرْحَمُ الرَّاحِمِينَ. From the same word as Ar-Rahman. What's the difference here? The alif. Rahim. The word Rahim is ismun fa'il. Right? For example, if I say dhahib, right, it sounds the same. Dhahib and Rahim, same type of, wordage, right? Same type of wazn. What's wazn again? Ozan. Wazn is like, in Arabic, this like, if you put it in certain type of formats, it means something different. If you say katib is the person that's writing. If you say dhahib, is the person that is going, right? So if, for example, if I call my mom and I say, Mom, or I say dad, right? Because if I say dhahiba, it changes the word at the end. Let's just say, Dad, where are you going? If he responds to me and says, Ana, I am dhahibun ila suq, I am going to the market. But when he says dhahibun, he's actually doing it right now. He's like on the way. He's driving maybe. Does that make sense? He's doing it right now. When you say Rahim, Allah is loving and caring for you right now. Continuously. Does that make sense? So he's sending a message to his sons. He is saying that indeed Allah is the one that protects. And He's the one that's overwatching. He's the one that's most loving. And He's doing that right now, and He's going to do that forever. Right? He says this. He says this after his sons go to him asking for his other son, his Binyamin, to go with them again. You'd be like, what do you want to do to him now? You want to put him in the well too? Like, obviously he didn't know that, but you want to get rid of him also? But he didn't say that. Wallahi, he stopped and used this opportunity to give advice. Isn't that loving? Isn't that caring? Isn't that fair? Wallahi, I've never met, and I don't think I will ever meet anybody that is great as the prophets of Allah. And this is just one prophet. This is one example that Allah gives us. One example in the Quran that Allah gives us out of many. How much are we losing if we are not reading the Quran? How much are we missing out if we don't have an attachment with the Quran? If this is one person that Allah gives us an example for, what about the others, the other prophets? What about them? Do you not want to learn about them? Do you not want to know them after knowing who Yaqub is? We are at loss. We are at loss if we don't connect with the Quran. This is our salvation. This is the answer to our du'as, our calls, our stress, our life, our questions. This is what the Quran can give us. But when we choose not to do it, it's us that we're losing. We're the losers. Right? Ayah number 65. Can you read that again, Shadawin? Number 65, next page.
ولما فتحوا متاعهم وجدوا بضاعتهم ردت إليهم قالوا يا أبانا ما نبغي هذه بضاعتنا ردت إلينا ونمير أهلنا ونحفظ أخانا ونزداد كيل بعير ذلك كيل يسير قال لن أرسله معكم حتى تؤتوني موثقا من الله لتأتونني به إلا أن يحاط بكم فلما آتوه موثقهم قال الله على ما نقول وكيل.
تبارك الرحمن. Okay, so I'll try my best to keep. I may go over time a little bit because there's a lot to break down here. So they couldn't say anything else to their father. There's no reply that's mentioned in the Quran after their father said what he said. So he goes straight into what they did afterwards. وَلَمَّا فَتَحُوا, they said they went back to their caravan, to the things. فَتَحُوا, they opened their things. مَتَاعَهُمْ, their items, their bags. وَجَدُوا بِضَاعَتَهُمْ, they found their merchandise. They didn't know it was there. They were surprised by it because they didn't know it was there. You can't find anything if you know it's there already, right? They found their things, رُدَّتْ إِلَيْهِمْ, that was returned to them. So immediately they thought of the courtesy of Yusuf alayhi salam. They thought of his honesty, his integrity. They immediately knew that Yusuf alayhi salam ordered the things to be returned to them. Right? Now, some people might think like, wouldn't that be a form of stealing from Yusuf, right? Like, he could just take money from the people and just give back, right? Now, there was an explanation by Sheikh Nu'man. He mentioned that as a government official, you are like a judge, for example, right? If you're a judge and you see a person who has to pay like a ticket, $100 ticket, for example, and you ask them a series of questions, just like Yusuf alayhi salam says, you know, like, what happened? Tell me the circumstance and whatnot. And the person, you know, the judge finds out that the person is very poor. In fact, maybe like a single mother, and she has two daughters, or you know, two children, and she's working 2 jobs, but she just lost one, for example, right? I'm just making a story. The judge, after knowing what's, you know, whatever the situation of that person, doesn't the judge get he has the ability to say, you know what, pay half or pay a quarter, or in fact, don't even pay anything, right? I understand your situation. It was a mistake. Your record is clean. You've never made a mistake before. This is maybe just, you know, like a first time, whatever. Fine. It's just a warning. You know, it's fine. Can a judge do that? It's not his money though. But yes, as a judge, you're able to do that. In his case, it's the same thing with Yusuf alayhi salam. Yusuf, he knows, he knows that his family was poor. He knows that they had to travel very far to get to Egypt. He knows that each and every single brothers possibly has a family to feed. So we're talking about 10 brothers, times 2 for each wife, maybe times 4 again for their children. In fact, some of the scholars mention that the family of Yaqub alayhi salam may have reached over 70 members in their family. This is a huge amount. So Yusuf alayhi salam, what does he do? He would do that to anyone else, right? He would help them if he can. And same thing with the brothers. He didn't give them extra services or extra money or whatnot just because he knows them. Because we proved that Yusuf alayhi salam had integrity. We proved that he cared for people. And we proved that he loved Allah and he was conscious of Allah. He had taqwa. So we can't say now that Yusuf alayhi salam, you know, like, who is he to give his own family more money? Does that make sense? Right? So the brothers are saying, this is our things. This is our merchandise. Ruddat ilayna. It was returned to us. قالوا يا أبانا ما نبغي. They says, oh father, look at what we got. This is what we wanted. Bagha means, if I say abghi or abgha hada, I want this. This is what we yearn for. This is what we really wanted. Right? In fact, bagha can even surpass what you want. Right? All they want was to trade. They just wanted the food. But when they saw their stuff, they're like, this is more than what we want. Right? This ma nabghi, this is overfilling. He was so, Yusuf alayhi salam, or the king, let's just say the king of Egypt, was so generous, he gave us more than what we wanted. Right? هذه بضاعتنا ردت إلينا. This is our things. So they went to their father and they said, look, this is the things that was returned to us. Don't you see? We're not lying. We're not lying in this time. Here's proof. So, subhanAllah. So when I was reading this, it goes back to the point where I just can't forget that Yusuf alayhi salam knows that if the father would see the bida'ah, their items, Yusuf knows that this is a way to convince Yaqub, his father, to allow Binyamin to go. Because wasn't that his plan? For me, wallahi, it's a plan that I still don't understand. How would Yusuf know to convince the father? Now, he already convinced the brothers, but to convince the father to trust the brothers again? How would you do that? Yusuf alayhi salam, he didn't even go to convince their father himself. He had to make their brothers do something to convince their father, to do something impossible. Ta'wil al-ahadith. This is my opinion. Wallahu ta'ala alam. I can't block out the fact that Yusuf alayhi salam, he was so intelligent to be able to come with a plan with just a few days to plan everything. With just a small amount of days, he was able to convince the brothers to go back. And the only thing that the brothers wanted is to go back with Binyamin. But the other element to that was to convince the father as well. What kind of intelligence do you have to be able to plan such a thing? Right? Now, after Yaqub alayhi salam sees the things, or I'll finish the ayah and then we'll get into the next ayah, inshallah. وَنَحْفُظْ أَخَانَا. So they said, this is what we wanted. This is what we want. وَنُمِيرُ الْأَهْلَنَا. They said, namiru means to feed, right? Or to feed. Numiru ahlana is to feed our family to their full. This is what they wanted. Now it's kind of strange that they would bring that up, and then they would bring up the fact that they want to bring their brothers with them, right? So you can see that you know how you mentioned when something's important to you, you tend to mention it immediately, or it's the first thing that comes to your head. And those who can't really hold their tongues, they would actually say it, right? Things that are important to you. If somebody were to test you, you would kind of like mention the things that would come to mind first, right? And the things that come to mind is something that's important to you. The brothers here, they're saying وَنُمِيرُ أَهْلَنَا. The first thing that they said after they found their things, they're so excited, their emotions are kind of haywire at this moment, right? Like they can't believe it. Now they have something to go prove to their father and convince their father again. So they're excited. They're like, yes, we can, they can show him that we're not lying this time, right? So their emotions are high, and the first thing that they said is وَنُمِيرُ أَهْلَنَا. We can feed our family till they're full. So let our brother, right, akhana, now they're saying our brother, akhana, we will take him with us so that we can get more. So that we can get another ba'ir, like another load of camel, if that makes sense, right? ذَلِكَ كَيْلُ يَسِيرٌ. That is an easy measurement to have. It's easy. All we need to do is bring our brother and we'll be back. Don't worry. We'll go and we'll get another portion, and then maybe we can even use the merchandise we sold and sell that again to get more. So they're thinking business, right? They're thinking like all they see is wealth in front of them, right? Now, it kind of revisits the whole aspect of people in our life can be insensitive to our feelings sometimes, right? Now, we may have people in our life. In fact, we might even have family members in our life that may treat us in a way where you won't even treat a dog, right? You might have family members where when there's a group chatting or like a group gathering, and for example, you were to speak, there's a sense of no respect that is given to you. They won't listen to your words, right? Or your opinions doesn't matter, right? This happens a lot. Now, Allah is giving us an example. In the case where the 10 brothers are listening to the words, the loving, and caring response of their own father, right? And they didn't say anything. They go back to and then what did they find? They see money. They see money and everything changed. Everything changed. And all they see is money. That's all they see. And just a few minutes ago, their father says, Wallahu khairul hafidha wa huwa arhamur rahimin. He's giving them loving, caring advice. And what did he see? They see money. Right? They see money and then they go back to their father and try to convince him again. Do you see? Now, these are his own sons. His own sons. So when it comes to your family, the way to respond to people in our family is the exact way that we should respond, just like how Yaqub alayhi salam responds. This is the example that Allah gives us. No matter how bad it is, even if they blackmail you, they make crazy rumors about you. They spread lies about you. Which example does Allah give us when it comes to family members who are like that to us? Yaqub alayhi salam. This is how Muslims should be. Yes, it's difficult. Wallahi, it's difficult. It's probably the most difficult thing that one may face is to deal with a family member, because you can't just avoid them, right? If it's like a coworker or it's just a person in the community, you might be able to not see them, a few days or a few months or whatever, right? But your own family member who you live with, who you see every Eid, who you see every Ramadan, who you see every family gathering, and you have this weird kind of like relationship with them. But what does Allah show us? As a true mu'min, as a person who always is conscious of Allah, you treat them with kindness. Wallahi is hard, but is going to work. It's the only answer. The only way that will work with these people is this. There's no other way. You can't. If you treat them the way they treat you, it's calamity, havoc. You can't. It's not possible. It's like two rocks trying to hit each other. None of it will give. Right? Okay. I want to end it with this next ayah. So allow me a few more moments, inshallah, for those who came for prayer. I apologize. Inshallah, 5 more minutes and then we'll stop there, inshallah. Prayer is at 7:15? 7:30. Okay, class. Ayah number 66. Ayah number 66. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, actually, Yaqub alayhi salam responds again. The other ayah that we just explained was profound. This is just another layer. قَالَ لَنْ أُرْسِلَهُ مَعَكُمْ حَتَّى تُؤْتُونِي مَوْثِقًا مِنَ اللَّهِ. I will not. Actually, in fact, he says, لَنْ. I will never send him with you. Okay, this is kind of like a play with words here. I will not send him with you until you swear with Allah that you will bring him back. That you will bring him back with me. Okay? Now, it would have been enough if he stopped there. It would have been logical for anybody to make this agreement, right? You'd be like, you swear by Allah that you bring him back, and that's it. I will accept nothing else. You swear by Allah, you bring him back. That's it. If you can swear that, then he can go with you. But he does not stop there. He does not stop there. He says, unless illa ayyuhata bikum. He says unless. So halta is like completely surrounded. Like you cannot is. So if you're in war, for example, right, and the enemy completely surrounds you, there's like almost 0% that you can flip it around. If they completely surround you, that's it. That's game over. Right? So, Yaqub alayhi salam, he says, Illa ayyuhata bikum. You bring him back, you promise to bring back, except, he says except. I'm going to explain that in a little bit. He says except unless you're surrounded, meaning like you're completely like. So this ties into the next few ayahs when it talks about the brothers entering from different gates back into Egypt because they're scared of something might happen to them, right? The journey back with 10 brothers, someone may have spotted them like, man, 10 people, they must have a lot of wealth. If I see them again, I'm gonna take over, right? So Yaqub alayhi salam, subhanAllah, he gave them an excuse. Just like before. When Yusuf alayhi salam, he says to the brothers, I'm afraid that something might eat him, a wolf might eat him, right? He gives them another what's another word for it? He gives them another excuse, because let's just say they wanted to bring Binyamin to get rid of him. They could just come back and be like, we were surrounded, we were overpowered, we couldn't control, like somebody came and they took Binyamin and we couldn't help it, right? Why would a father, after losing one son already, give his sons another excuse the second time around? Why? Because Yaqub alayhi salam knows that is out of their control. That if something else happens, is Allah that controls that event. So another thing to mention, he is mindful of their feelings. He's mindful of the feelings of the 10 sons after what they did. He said he gave them an excuse. They didn't give them an excuse. He gave them an excuse to use. Right? فلما أتوه موثقا قال الله على ما نكون وكيل. It's time, huh? Okay, we'll inshallah we'll continue after the next week, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.